Hey guys, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel, and it's toy mystery time, or at least time to dig into an odd mystery that's shown up, I guess, on the internets, and that's regarding the Motu Minis, specifically these minis, the She-Ra and Horde Trooper, with staff, shield, and sword. Okay, they both have a shield. So yeah, these two miniature versions of classics figures, or just characters, never got released, sort of. Alright, let's go back. Let's just talk about the line itself, and then what we're talking about, the Minis Masters of the Universe line, also known as Masters of the Universe Eternia Minis. These have been at retail, they have been at conventions, they have actually had quite a few iterations at both. They started off at retail as a blind box package in snap cases that contained a good guy or bad guy, and was in both Castle Grayskull and the second wave in Snake Mountain. Fans quickly figured out the coding system for the blind box, though, and once it was published online, I guess that and the combined extra cost meant that we were going down to single carded figures, which is, honestly, to me, a lot better. You should always show toys. Toys need to be seen to be bought, and this toy went through quite a few packaging upgrades, and, you know, while it was fodder for your obvious redecos, which are needed to keep any line going, it was also price point-wise at that, I guess what we would call the shut-me-up price point. It also allowed for things like vehicles. We never got to play sets, but the scale of the figures itself was definitely an advantageous factor, because anytime you can get figures and vehicle play, you have infinitely increased the playability. Alright, so Eternia Minis, Motu Minis, they had their kind of time at retail. They did fairly well, and while unfortunately their time has passed, they were actually an adaptation of an earlier line. This was the one that started on Mattel Collector 10, 15 years ago. Looking for a new form factor to sell the main characters in, we looked at what was on trend and doing super deformed mini figures. Now, the first ones were done as a San Diego Comic-Con item and wound up becoming a one-off, not just because of the packaging, which, once again, was a Castle Grayskull-shaped package. I mean, once again, because the first Classics figure was like that. It was King Grayskull, this time He-Man versus Skeletor, but same concept. The minis were done partially as a new way to collect and also to tie into the app game that was being developed by Mattel's, well, shocker, app team group. And while I did get to participate in some of the development, mostly with suggestions for characters or other things, I can't take credit for the giant Skeletor that faces you in the last battle. But I will take credit for helping develop the toy, and while it didn't match future mini releases, it did stand out as kind of a nice Comic-Con one-off item, presenting both He-Man and Skeletor in their traditional look, if you will. So when it came time to expanding on the line and seeing what else we could offer, unfortunately the size was not advantageous to a two-pack, so we had to reduce the scale a little bit and sort of start over when we started selling them as two-packs on Mattel Collector under the Motu Minis brand. Each figure coming with 2 accessories and a piece of a larger plastic Castle Grayskull, because anytime you can have a collect and connect kind of system, Marvel Legends does it so well, it encourages people to buy in and across a line in multiple SKUs. So you got 2 figures, you got a chunk of Castle, and hopefully you bought all of them and got all of the chunks, even though, some of the chunks work just fine on their own. And as, marketing brand manager, I did everything I could to push this. The second year, we looked at expanding this, and honestly, the fans really embraced it. I mean, there's even, fan creations for this line in websites. But unfortunately, there just wasn't enough sales. We put up year 2, which was going to be a build-up of Snake Mountain and would have included these figures seen here. And would have worked the same way, that each figure would come with a piece of Snake Mountain, and you'd be encouraged to buy all of them, because then you could have your little Snake Mountain display, and we had our standard meter, this time shaped like the plastic diorama. Unfortunately, it didn't hit its goal, which meant this was it. This was the only minis that we produced under the Mattel Collector line. But because we were hawking a second year, and the minis were pretty easy to prototype, fully painted versions of all of these figures were shown at San Diego Comic-Con. So fans saw all of the figures that were coming, which meant they got to, well, not just see them, but saw how far they were in development. We even did print ads, really pushing the subscription, doing everything we could to encourage people to support it. But again, unfortunately, the support just wasn't there at the time. I think He-Man fans were pouring their money into classics, which was probably a better idea. And unfortunately, the online version of this had to go the big A-way. So that leaves the question that we started this video with the Horde Trooper and She-Ra. Because unlike all of the other Year 2 figures, these ones have actually showed up packaged. And not just packaged, but fully, with logos and legal lines and shipper boxes, blister card, etc., etc. And every so often one of these does show up on eBay, and it's gotten attention from fan sites, and because this wasn't a figure that was sold on Mattel Collector, and neither of these characters were ever put into the retail Eternia Minis line. So it's definitely led to a question that's going to happen for years, is, wait, did Mattel actually make this toy? I mean, it's got Mattel's logo on it right there, and all of the legal lines, and, all of the fine print. And the answer is no, Mattel did not make this. So what happened was this would have been the first 2-pack for the second year, I think the 2014 toy year, for the Minis line. And we started developing product before the subscription was over, and as the first SKU, the She-Ra and Horde Trooper made it all the way to tooling, meaning they were fully paid for, they were tooled, and ready to ship. But when the subscription program didn't hit, the whole line got canceled. And this kind of overlapped with when I was leaving Mattel, and more or less the vendor, the factory, since they had the tool and Mattel wasn't using it, they just pumped some out. Look at the back of the package and you can see how they don't show the other Year 2 figures. They just show, in fact, Year 1, even with the Year 1 Castle Grayskull. So they basically mocked up a back panel, since none of the other figures that were shown were tooled or photographed for a cross-sell. Only She-Ra and the Horde Trooper were, because, again, as the first figure, they were the first pack that was going to come out, they made it all the way to tooling. And because of that, yes, one of the last things I did before I left Mattel was I officially got a sign out of some of the early actual produced samples, because I had a feeling this wasn't going to go to market. I was like, you know what, I'm going to get these signed out so I can have a set. So yeah, I love my set, and those who want it, the vendor, shall we say, unofficially, illegally produced quite a few of them and just started selling them on eBay. And I think Mattel just never cared to shut them down because the squeeze just wasn't worth the juice. So that's where they came from. They almost made it into the Mattel line, and because the tool was paid for and never used, and honestly, of every toy I've ever worked on, this is the only one I could think of that was tooled and not released. Because when you tool a figure, you want to get your money back. So it was a weird one, and that's why the vendor just made them. They had the tool, Mattel wasn't using it. Alright, well, I hope this video clarified the odd history of the She-Ra Horde Trooper 2-pack and why you might or might not have one. Thanks for watching, thanks for sharing, and I'll see you in the next video.